Eye on Northwest Politics. Oregon's lone Republican Congressman, Representative Cliff Bentz of District 2, calls in from the nation's capital. We get his take on President Trump returning to the White House, the direction of the new administration and Congress, and does it make sense for a big part of his district to become part of Idaho? Also, Metro mayors form a united front. What are the priorities for cities in 2025, especially outside of Portland? And what are they asking from legislators in Salem? I sit down with Mayor Joe Buck of Lake Oswego and Lacey Beatty of Beaverton.
In Portland, where they kill people, they destroy the city, nothing happens to them.
And President Trump has some choice words for Portland starting on Inauguration Day. I'll give you my reaction to the president's comments as I take over this week's Give Me a Minute. Eye on Northwest Politics starts now. Thanks for joining us. This is Eye on Northwest Politics. I'm Ken Boddy. Let's get right to your top political headlines. Oregon lawmakers are considering more than 2,300 bills as the Oregon legislature wraps up its first week of the 2025 session. Governor Tina Kotek and lawmakers say housing, homelessness, mental health, transportation, and education funding are the top priorities this session. Democrats hold a supermajority in both the House and the Senate, meaning they do not need Republican support to pass legislation. The session's scheduled to run through June 30th. This week, a federal judge in Washington state is blocking President Trump's executive order to take away birthright citizenship. That judge, issuing a temporary restraining order, is calling the order, quote, blatantly unconstitutional. The judge says the order violates the 14th Amendment, guaranteeing citizenship to people born or naturalized in the U.S. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield joined Washington state and several other states in this lawsuit. And Portland Mayor Keith Wilson says the city needs to set up more nighttime shelters now. The plan is estimated to cost $28 million this year and $24 million next year. Despite the city facing a $100 million budget deficit, Mayor Wilson says the city can't afford not to do this. He also says he's trying to get money from county, state, and federal resources. Oregon Congressman Cliff Bentz of Ontario is the only Republican in Oregon's congressional delegation after November's defeat of fellow Republican Lori Chavez-DeRemer by Democrat Janelle Bynum. Bentz, a third-generation Oregonian, is an attorney, a rancher, and a state legislator formerly. He represents Oregon District 2, one of the largest congressional districts in the nation. It encompasses eastern, central, and southern Oregon, including the cities of Medford, Ashland, Klamath Falls, and the Dalles. Congressman Cliff Bentz joins us now from Washington, D.C. Welcome to Eye on Northwest Politics, and congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you, Ken. Great to be with you this afternoon.
Well, your district has been solidly Republican since 1981, so just like to get your thoughts on Donald Trump's victory and also the first week in office.
Well, I'm very, very happy, and I can assure you that about 85% of my district is very, very happy that Donald Trump won the presidency. I'll also share with you that having all three branches of the government in one level of Republican control or another, depending on how close you look, is a good thing for America. And I'm very much looking forward to trying to help the president secure the border, breathe life back into our energy space, and help reduce inflation. These are the things that he ran on, and we hope to be able to help him in achieving those goals.
You're the only Republican in Oregon's congressional delegation, yet, as you mentioned, Republicans now control the White House and Congress. So how does that change your approach in D.C.?
Well, no longer do we have to worry about a bill going across the floor of the House and just stalling out, because now that we enjoy having a significant number of more Republicans in the Senate than we had in the past, we have a real chance of moving that legislation. And then in addition, we are actually getting hearings on that legislation. And then in addition, since we have President Trump in the White House, we have a chance of getting the bills signed should we get them through the House and across the floor of the Senate. Of course, we still have the issue of 60 votes being generally required in the Senate. So it means that there'll have to be deals worked out with at least some of the Democrats some of the time. And I'm hopeful that many of the things that we have in mind will meet with at least some of the Democrats' approval.
You just introduced legislation to transfer 150 acres of federal land in the Dalles watershed to the city of the Dalles. So why are you doing that, and why are you trying to protect that watershed?
So the Dalles is reliant upon water that is stored in a reservoir that is produced on a watershed above the city, and this 150 acres currently owned by the Forest Service is part of that watershed. And in addition, it's also part of the ground upon which the reservoir for the city is located. So transferring this land to the city would give it a chance to increase the size of its reservoir and also further protect that watershed. So it's a great big deal for the city, and I'm hopeful we'll get the bill through.
Is this in any way related to the Google data centers that are in the Dalles that suck up a lot of water? Are you trying to protect and make sure that both Google gets what they need in terms of water as well as the city itself?
Well, I didn't talk to Google about my bill, so if it helps them, hooray. But my focus has been primarily on what the city has indicated it needs for the people that live there. But there is no doubt that these data centers use water. They also use enormous amounts of power. And so we're looking at all kinds of issues that arise from data centers. I'll just say, since you raised the issue, artificial intelligence is the future, and Google, Amazon, and these other companies that have data centers are heavily involved in that space. And we need to be doing what we can to try to figure out how in the world to help them get the power they need while not making your utility bill go through the roof.
Your committee assignments have changed. You're now on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, serving on 3 subcommittees now. Those are Energy, Health, and Commerce. You're still on the Natural Resources Committee, but not House Judiciary as you were before. So did you seek these new assignments, and if so, why?
Yes, I did seek the seat I now enjoy on Energy and Commerce, and I did so because I think the issues that Energy and Commerce deals with every day are far more relevant to most people in the Northwest than the issues we were dealing with in Judiciary. So I did ask for that seat. I'm very happy to have obtained it, and now I'll be involved in the Energy Subcommittee, on which I will sit, on the Healthcare Subcommittee that I'm on, and also on the Commerce Data Subcommittee. So those committees all, one way or another, involve activities we have going on in the Northwest, and particularly energy. So I've spent a lot of my life working to make energy more available and hopefully someday less expensive. And I plan on continuing that effort on the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee. I stayed on the Natural Resource Committee because I wanted to stay on the Water Sub committee, and I am on it, and I'm happy for the opportunities that gives me to protect water rights.
President Trump wants to end birthright citizenship, as we mentioned earlier in this program, that a person born in the U.S. is a citizen. That is the case now. Oregon Attorney General Rayfield has already joined other AGs in opposing that idea. So what's your view on birthright citizenship?
Well, the Constitution says that if you're born here, you're a citizen. So I think when the president issued that order, he has an uphill battle. It will go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ultimately will decide if birthright citizenship is protected by the Constitution. I understand why the president is worried about this. There's no doubt that many, many, many people come to America to have their child born, and they do so because they want that child to enjoy citizenship. I'm not sure that's what the founding fathers had in mind. They certainly didn't realize the type of transportation alternatives that we now have available. So it'll be interesting to see what the Supreme Court does. But the Constitution says if you're born here, you're a citizen. So I think it's a bit of a heavy lift for the president.
Are you in favor of mass deportations, especially in your district?
If you've committed a crime, yes. That's going to be the focus, and the challenge is going to be how to make sure that people who haven't committed crimes are afforded the protections that the law provides them, and I think they will be. But right now, the focus is going to be on those who've committed crimes. And I just wanted to draw attention to your listeners of how many people came across the border that had criminal records. They should never have come in to begin with. I
want to ask you about the Greater Idaho movement. It's still active. They put out big billboards outside the Salem area, and much of your district will become part of Idaho if this movement is successful. So what do you think of the Greater Idaho movement?
Well, I've talked with folks a lot about this, and I certainly understand their desire to escape the progressive political approach that Portland tries to impose upon the rest of the state. And I truly understand, having spent 12 long years in the Oregon legislature, 10 in the House and 2 in the Senate, the challenges that go with trying to head off those progressive policies. It's been extraordinarily difficult, given that the 12 years I spent, not one day in the majority. So I get it. I understand why people would want to join Idaho. I think, however, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult, if for no other reason than tax arrangements and road funding. All of those kinds of issues need to be discussed. But I sure understand why people would want to join Idaho.
Congressman Cliff Bentz, thank you for joining Eye on Northwest Politics. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it.
Next, 2 local mayors with their attention now turned to the state capitol. Beaverton Mayor Lacey Beatty and Lake Oswego Mayor Joe Buck leading a group of mayors who are taking their issues from housing to transportation to the 83rd legislature. Our conversation after the break.